We're back, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got Drew Pearson in studio with us. We'll be back this Sunday with a Sunday broadcast, 4 to 6 p.m. Central on many of these same stations. I will not be here because my great uncle died yesterday, and I got to go to his military funeral in East Texas. But David Knight's going to be doing the Sunday show in here, and I will be calling in because the funeral's at like 2 o'clock, and it'll be over about 3, and I'll probably go to an after deal, but I'll be calling in with any breaking news on the Sunday show, 4 to 6 p.m. As well. We've had a bunch of special reports this week from the nightly news that we haven't gotten to on the radio. We'll be airing some of those incredibly important reports on the Sunday broadcast as well, 4 to 6 p.m. The news websites are INFOWARS.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And we have a big story Kurt Nemo wrote up on DrudgeReport.com. Drudge is on there like the last 2 days in a row. Nemo's had stories on the Drudge Report, so good job to Kurt Nemo over there. Covering Dianne Feinstein saying you aren't press unless you're getting an official salary from an official news agency. And people better watch out about that because they want to start restricting people's access as the press to cover things and press freedom, like not giving up sources. They want to be able to say that you don't have those rights. She's also saying talk radio shouldn't have press freedom, and that they should have the fairness doctrine again that's totally unfair and controls what we can say. Did you know before the mid-1980s, folks, you couldn't get political and say what your view is? Drew Pearson, let me put you on the hot seat here, because I was joking about, hey, look, you have all these big shows, but you love to promote your own, but I'm the same way. I mean, it's like when I do some YouTube at home, and it's just me, I almost like it more than when I'm on the official show, because it's like a hobby or something. It makes it more fun, but talking about politics in this world. I know you're nothing but a positive guy, but what is there that you think's positive about what's happening in America versus what's negative about what's happening in America? And then related to the Cowboys, what's positive about the Cowboys' development right now, or other football teams versus negative? And is the NFL going to get less gangster now or more gangster?
I think it's going to get less gangster, to take that on first, but because the NFL powers that be have always been trying to police the NFL as far as the players are concerned. Now, the players haven't lately been following that policy, because you see more arrests from NFL football players, but that doesn't mean the NFL is not going to stop or is going to stop beating on these players to try to get them to do the right thing. But a lot of times these players get in this position where they're going to make this type of money, and they feel this certain level of power now that they have because they are in NFL and they're playing under the shield of the NFL. They think they're invincible and they can go out and do things that they normally wouldn't do. But they quickly learn that, once you cross that line and commit a crime or something of that nature, you're just like anybody else, and you're going to be prosecuted just like anybody else. But I think what's positive in this country, I think our leadership is positive. I think, despite, still having a lot of issues, unemployment, educational, dealing with the war and all that kind of stuff that we deal with, I think the right leadership is in place for us to deal with that. And I think so I think that's good. What's wrong is some of the things I mentioned, the unemployment, the poverty, and things like that. You go in Dallas, you look in certain areas, it looks like everything is great. But there's pockets of communities in Dallas where things aren't so great. And so,
I know. I grew up in Dallas. Yeah.
We need to go in there and try to clean up those areas. And
remember during the 80s when Dallas was the murder capital?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's 50 years now since the assassination of JFK. Wow, yeah. Yeah, and so now that comes back to light, and now Dallas is again cast as that city, where JFK died, and all that negativity that came along with that. But Alex, I've always been of the belief that we should take care of what's wrong with our country and our citizens first before we step overseas to help.
I agree. That's what
we need to help them too. Yeah. Because they need that assistance, but we got to take care of our own. How can we leave our people suffering here and in such dire straight type situations and then go help somebody else over there?
Well, that's what Jay Leno said to Obama.
And we'll have more here to help them over there.
So do you agree with what Jay Leno said to Obama a few nights ago? He said, look, we need to quit worrying about Egypt, get over here, because so much of our money, whether it's Republican or Democrat, is spent, they call it helping, but it's really to help grease the skids for special interest, a lot of times that aren't even American companies overseas.
Right.
I mean, if they were actually sometimes greasing the skids overseas for companies that actually had jobs here, then it might not be, I mean, it's not even paying off, is my point.
Right, you're right, it's not. And so I've always believed that we should take care of our own first before we step out and help others. And we can do both, you know. But
charity starts at home.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we got to do, because there's so many things that people deal with on a daily basis in their lives, whether it be physical or mental or, you know, unemployment or some issues. And, you know, we can paint that picture that America is so great and, you know, everybody's living great and all that, but we know that's not the true picture. You know, if you're going to paint the picture, paint the total picture and show, you know, poverty, the slums in so many areas. How about Detroit right now?
Oh, my gosh.
City's going down, you know. How come we can't put some influx of capital or whatever is needed to bring that city back and get them out of bed?
Well, if we wouldn't have shipped General Motors to China,
yeah,
I mean, well, that was, I mean, take the bailout money and pay to ship it to China.
Yeah.
Gee, I'm no rocket scientist, but I think you'd actually pay to keep it in Detroit. Or
right. And you see the automotive industry has gotten better in Detroit, but it hasn't helped enough. It hasn't gotten better enough to help the city recover from where they are. And you know, it's a tough deal. I don't think many free agents in the NFL, baseball, NBA are looking, you know, beating their doors down to try to go to Detroit because of the quality of living there.
You talked about life after football, and I grew up watching football, you know, play a little football on my own haphazard way, family, all big football fans. And I liked good old-fashioned healthy football where it was a game and you know, the people were interesting. And it was something, though, that was for football time. Nowadays, everything is sports related. It just gets bigger and bigger, and it almost makes it hollow when the people really aren't even excited about it. It's just the only thing they even know to talk about, to where there's not anything else but that. And I know you make your living still out of football and love it and played it and, you know, like it and are a master of it. But at the same time, do you ever sit there and see the news leading with a sports story when something incredibly important isn't even on the news, and like ask yourself, I mean, is there ever a point for Drew Pearson where it's too much sports?
Yeah, right now. Yeah. And it's too much investigative sports. You know, they're making sports sound like the news, you know.
There you go.
You know.
Investigative sports.
Yeah. And, you know, it's crazy, you know. I mean, like the incident with the kid from A&M, Johnny Manziel. I mean, they're the ones blowing this up till it's become news, not only on the sports page, but on the front pages of newspapers. And as you say, leading newscasts and things like that. And it's the media that does it. And the media kind of lumps themselves in one category, one group, and they feel that their purpose is necessary, and it is. But I think in the world of sports, we look at that for enjoyment more so than finding out if a kid signed autographs for $7,500 or whatever, you know. And there's nothing more crooked, in my opinion, than the NCAA, you know, for the double standards that they set, you know.
Oh, yeah, it's a mafia.
Those guys on the suit side are making big money associated with the NCAA, but the ones that are getting, you know, screwed, so to speak, are the athletes, which they label as student athletes. You know,
and then you're a criminal if somebody gives you a car, but the fat cats can make hundreds of millions of dollars out of it.
Yeah, well, the kid plays a game on national TV. There's millions and millions watching on TV. There's 100,000 people sitting in that stands. After the game, where does he go? You can't even go buy him a meal. You know, he's got to be careful who pats him on the back even. He goes back to that dorm, gets in those books, and starts studying to try to stay eligible to play the next game. And where does that coach go? He's making $3 million a year. He gets in his paid car, you know.
Or he's making $10 million if it's Mac Brown.
Or, yeah, Nick Saban. And he drives his family. He's got his family. They go to their big luxury home. They sit down at a dinner table, have a meal together while the kid's eating in a dorm with other, student athletes. And so
there's a word for it.
Inequity.
It's parasitic. It's parasitic.
Yeah, that's even better word. Yeah, for sure. And, I have, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is how the NCAA is overlooking the product. You know, it was that way for a long time in the NFL. When I came into the league, the owners could do anything they want with the players. Bob Lilly, all pro, was making $50,000 back then, you know, after 13 years in the league. And he's holding out my rookie year to get $80,000. You know, we had no leverage as players to fight the NFL owners and the powers that be. But once we started getting together as a union, I went on strike 4 times in my 11-year career with the Dallas Cowboys. One time in '82, we had a work stoppage where I missed 6 NFL games. Well, what that did is gave us credibility as a union. So now the NFL owners has to deal with us. And in dealing with us, you see where these salaries are now in the NFL.
And that's where the divide...
Sooner or later is going to happen with college football. I don't know how you're going to pay these kids, but sooner or later they're going to have to get some of that money that's being generated by them, the product.
Or it could almost go into like a college pension for them or something, you know, where the money gets put into a pension. If they get injured or if they can't get a job after, then there's a college pension. But then you wouldn't be paying the UT football coach. What is it a year? It's like $8 million?
Yeah, and look at his record lately.
Do what?
Look at his record, 1-loss record lately.
Absolutely.
He's not living up to the expectations of that salary because of the 1-loss record. But, you know, that's the way the NFL is right now. And hopefully... well, you can compare it to... The NCAA is right now, and hopefully that'll change over time. But it's a great suggestion. What I suggest is... So when you sign that kid, now he's eligible for a fund. If he graduates after 4 years, there should be enough money in that fund where he can take that now and start to deal with his life after college football, getting the job, making that transition and all that. But he doesn't get that money until he graduates, okay? And that graduation might come 10 years after, you know, he played the game. But at the same time, that money's accruing. And, you know, whenever he takes that money, he'll get whatever's there. But that's one way to do it. But then you get into the situation where you got the football team generating most of the income for the university and for the NCAA. So how do you make it fair and equitable for the swimming team, the golf team?
But again, that's communism because they're not bringing the draw. They don't deserve it.
Right.
And that's what's wrong with...
They don't deserve it, and then the other...
But that's what's wrong with communism, is that you take who produces and give to somebody else, and then it's never going to be enough.
Right, right.
I mean, it's just ridiculous, and then your society falls apart.
Yes.
I mean, socialism and communism just doesn't work. I mean, you can have a wealthy free market and then take some of it and try to give people a leg up, and that's a good idea, but it always becomes, we can just vote ourselves everything that somebody else actually did. Like, but getting back to the union issue, I support unions in this country 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, but then they won't even stand up against NAFTA or GATT when it's obviously against them. Then they just become some, you know, group that's out for hire. But exactly, what if Americans got together as a union for liberty, for the Bill of Rights and Constitution, so special interests couldn't come in and basically get all that corporate welfare and take over the country? That's why they try to divide and conquer us everywhere, Drew, in my view. And so we're all fighting over religion, race, all these things that are just distractions and just on the surface, instead of $85 billion a month being given to foreign banks in QE3. Nobody even knows what that term is. Right. Because it's not on the news. Right. And they don't want it on the news. They want you worried about some college quarterback who might have got $5,000, right, you know, to pay for his, tuition or whatever, you know, behind the scenes or whatever happened, instead of foreign banks stealing trillions.
Yeah, well, there's no question about that. And that's called a media brainwashing. And that's what they want us to talk about, think about, and not the other things that are most important.